Hey, I'm Amanda from Trifecta Fitness. We're proud to be Clarksville's new Get Fit headquarters. Trifecta Fitness is a state-of-the-art spin and strength training studio. Our spin studio is truly one of a kind in this area, complete with 20 state-of-the-art live fitness bikes and an incredible sound system. Our strength training is done in small groups of 6 or fewer, and all of our strength and spin classes are scalable for every level of experience. Come see us in the heart of Clarksville, just behind MAPCO at the corner of Old Trenton Road and Wilma Rudolph Boulevard. Call us for more info at 931-542-6265 or download our Trifecta Fitness app for a full list of upcoming classes.
All right. Welcome back. MisFitNation. We are a show founded by a veteran and hosted by 2 veterans and a military spouse. Our mission is to get people to tell their story to the world. If you're an author, share your tips with the MisFitNation. If you're a musician or actor, our audience needs to know how they too can get into the business. Coaches, we love our coaches. Come on and share some of your tips with the MisFitNation to help them become better versions of themselves. If you're a corporate leader or an entrepreneur, come on and share how you did it and how hard you have fought for success. If you're a veteran, first responder, or Gold Star family, we would love to have you come on and just share your story with the MisFitNation. We always have time for you. If you're feeling down, alone, or starting to see the darkness, stop. Think about those who are around you. You are not alone. You will be missed. If you feel like your problems will be a burden to those in your inner circle or are embarrassed, dial 988. If you are a veteran, take option 1. We need you to keep pushing forward. Don't make a permanent solution to a temporary problem. If you're a new listener, welcome to the MisFitNation. Be sure to subscribe to our show on your favorite podcast apps and also on our YouTube channel at @_MisFitNation. Subscribe and click the bell to keep you up to date with our latest episodes and all of our news. You can also find us on Heroes Media Group and About Face Radio. Now, let's get to the show. All right. Welcome back to the MisFitNation. It's our first live show of 2024. Flu got us for the first couple that were supposed to come out, and a guest had a death in the family, so we lost our last one. But we're here tonight, and we're on the left coast of the United States, a place where you can't get bags at Walmart, so you got to struggle carrying all your crap outside. But I digress. I have a great guest tonight. He joined the Army in 1994, spent 20 years in the military. During those 20 years, he spent 6 to 8 months in deployment or combat tours. 9 of those months were in Bosnia. The rest were in Iraq and Afghanistan. After he left the military, he opened his own company in the trucking industry. He closed it shortly after COVID. Since then, he has started a podcast called Two Drunk Dudes in the Gun Room to highlight the struggles and the success stories of our veteran community. And he's building a nonprofit called Heroes Voices Media Foundation. So without further ado, let's welcome U.S. Army veteran and CEO of Heroes Voices Media Foundation, Donald Dunn, to MisFitNation. Welcome, Donald.
Hey, how's it going, man? Thanks for having me.
It's awesome, brother. It's awesome having you. And we had a little opportunity in the green room prior here, talking about our shared experience at Fort Stewart and lovely Georgia, and of course, right there where you are now in Raleigh, where I told you my story of playing dodgeball in a bar there. And that always brings laughs to people's faces, as it did to yours. So I was happy to help you out there. So, Donald, tell us a little more about yourself, as far back as you want to go. Tell us a little more about your military career and how you got to where we are today.
Well, I came in 94. You know, I came in for a little bit different reason than a lot of the people that came in after 9/11. I came in looking for a job, and the college money was just a benefit, even though I had pretty much accepted I was not a college student. And I came in because I got married right out of high school. Me and my wife had started dating in 7th grade and still married today. And came in to help support her and deal with the bills and life struggles. And to be honest, not knowing it then, but knowing it now, I needed some time to grow up too. And the Army was a great place for that. The only thing I didn't want when I came in the military was I didn't want my first duty station to be Korea, being just newly married and everything else. And that was the only thing I told the recruiter. The rest of it I didn't care about. And so they made sure that the first place I went to was Korea. And I spent a year there. Then I went to Fort Bliss, and me and my wife got together. And just like most other military guys, when they get finally back with their spouse, they have a baby. And so my son was born there. And, I wanted to get out of the military at that point. I was not happy. Still hadn't grown up yet. And the only thing that kept me re-enlisting at that time was the fact that I would have had to stay at Fort Bliss longer than if I just re-enlisted to go somewhere else. So I took that option. And that was probably the best decision that I've ever made. And the reason for that is I went from there to Germany, and I was put in a mechanized infantry unit. And from that point forward, I got to see what real good leadership actually was. And up to that point, I hadn't really discovered that. So, for me, the story, where you always hear the soldiers say, this is not the Army, wait till you get to so-and-so, you'll find the Army there. Well, I finally found it there in Germany. And I did my first deployment. It was a peacekeeping mission. So, our main mission was to find landmines and protect the little fob that we're in and help the government stand up and obey their laws. And so I spent 9 months over there and got to see some crazy stuff and learn that there really is worse place than where you live. I seen kids that are afraid to walk on anything that's not concrete because there was 1.5 million landmines still unaccounted for out over there. And so literally you'd watch children run around and nobody was in the grass. They didn't step in puddles. They walked on concrete or they didn't walk on it. So we would have kids, that want candy. We would try to teach them to bring us or to take us to wherever they find stuff. And if they found unexploded ordnance or whatever, we'd reward them with candy if they brought us to it. But occasionally the kids would get so excited that they found something that they would bring it to you. And that makes for a tight butthole puckering experience when you got a little kid walking to you with a Russian grenade or something. And you're trying to explain to him to put it down, praying to God he doesn't throw it down. And, but other than that, it was pretty much a work-related deployment, I went out on patrols with the scouts, and part of our job was if they didn't have the correct license plates, we'd tow their vehicles. So I'd take a Hemet wrecker and tow a civilian car with or whatever and take it to the military base. And that's all we did. Set up checkpoints and little shit like that. But after that, I decided I wanted to do a little bit more in the military. And I volunteered to go to the 160th. And I went to selection. I'm sure you're familiar there being around Clarksville. I seen your little ad there.
Yep.
That's where the regiment was at. Went through Green Platoon there. And from there, I was stationed at Fort Hunter Army Airfield there at 3rd Battalion. I did 10 years with the 160th. And
Wow.
by that time, I had gotten old. And the 19-year-old kids could run a lot faster than I could. And I decided it was time to retire. And so I took an overseas assignment thinking I was going to go back to Korea so I could come back to Fort Stewart and just retire. And I ended up going to Qatar and got stationed in Qatar for 15 months. And then I came, and the only thing I really didn't want to do was deploy anymore. And wouldn't you know it, I went to Qatar and I was literally part of the first group of people that ever deployed from Qatar. It was me, a base commander, and a bunch of officers going to Kandahar. And you're not even issued gear there. You don't even have any canteens, Kevlars. You don't have any of that stuff, man. And so they had to issue all that stuff just for us to deploy. And so we went over there for a few months and came back. And then I went back to Stewart and retired. I did one more deployment there right before I retired with 315. I spent a year in Ramadi, Iraq. If you've ever been there, it's a shithole. But
great place.
Yep. I spent a year every other day driving back and forth from there to Fallujah to help train Iraqis in logistics and working on our military vehicles that they were selling on black market. That's literally what we were doing. We would take them parts, they would sell them, and nothing we could do but just sit there and watch it. It was a disgrace. But I also set up a maintenance spot there for our convoys, and I was pretty successful with that. We went from having 2 civilians there that was doing all the base support maintenance to 9 civilians, and we were the 3rd largest in Iraq by the time I left. So we pushed a lot of convoys and a lot of repairs, and we did it with very few people. And so I was kind of proud about how things turned out there. We all went over, we all came back. It was a good mission. And then I ended up retiring. By this time I had, like I said, I racked up a lot of deployments, mostly with the 160th. We were 3 months in one place, 3 months back in the States, 3 months in another place. So, everybody says, well, that doesn't sound too bad. You're only over there for 3 months. Well, you're also not eligible for any dwell time either, because you only did 3 months before you touched U.S. soil again. So that train never ends. And the way it worked was when you were in the States, you were doing support for the Rangers, SF, SEALs, whoever in the special ops community was doing training, you were there supporting that training. Then you would turn around and deploy. And, it was it was an endless battle trying to manage your home life and your military life with how fast that cycle comes around. That was also the first place that I experienced loss, as far as losing some friends in combat. And, that was also my turning point for not really caring to be in the military. I was going a different direction without even realizing it. My family had seen the changes, but I never talked about a lot of stuff. And by the time I got out of the military, I was not in any mental shape to open up a business, but I did. I opened up a trucking company because I couldn't find a job. When I had gotten out, there wasn't no work where I chose to retire at there in Jessup, Georgia, for mechanics, because all the dealerships had went out of business and all the mom and pops wasn't hiring anybody. So I ended up I bought a semi truck and started driving. I did that for 6 years. And, it scares me now because how many soldiers, when they retire, when they get out, they go to the trucking industry. And for me, it sounded great. I don't have to deal with people. I get to be left alone. But what I didn't realize was that's not what you need. The isolation might feel good, but it is not healthy. And I had 11 hours a day to drive and do nothing but think. And then I sat inside a sleeper of a truck with just me and my dog and did nothing but think. And I was on the road for 6 weeks at a time, dealing with the stresses of a business, stresses with the problems that I was causing at home, the irradical behavior, the spontaneous spending and whatever. I just, at the end of the day, I ran that business in the ground. And I finally reached a breaking point. I came home for a hurricane, and we had so many people come into our house that I just couldn't deal with it anymore. We had so many people hunkering down. My brother, his wife, my son's girlfriend, her mom, her sister, their kids, my daughter, her boyfriend. I mean, just all these people, and I couldn't go nowhere. And the anxiety was just kicking my ass. Um, I ended up getting into a fight with my son. My wife had to break up, and ended up telling him that he didn't need to live here no more. So the day after a hurricane, I threw my son out of the house, and that's that was the point when I finally broke the shovel and realized I just can't keep digging anymore. I've got to get some help. And up to this point, the family never knew really what was going on. People don't realize that when you deploy that much, your family becomes immune to it too. I remember the first deployment, my wife was in tears as she was dropping me off at the flight line, and I was getting ready to go. My last deployment, that one in Iraq, she rolled over, gave me a kiss, and said, "I'll see you in a year." I mean, that's how immune it was. Like, he's going to work, and when he comes home, he still ain't going to talk about it. So it's just a normal day. And they didn't know the stuff that was going on over there, and the stuff I was dealing with. And by the time I got out of the military, I would come home, have dinner, and then go to the bedroom, and I'd stay in the bedroom the rest of the night until time for work the next morning. I didn't even know I was doing anything wrong. It felt perfectly normal to me, man. And, so I ended up, after getting some help, and I got kind of back into a level mindset where I realized how screwed up my life has gotten, and decided at that point I needed to do something to start fixing it. And COVID had hit at that time, and the trucking industry had taken a shit, and my operating costs had gone through the roof because I really, made decisions by how I felt that day versus actually thought. And, I'd bought in a brand new semi truck, $160,000 truck that, the payments were $643 a week, about $1,200 a week in fuel, $700 a month in insurance. I mean, the trailer that I bought was another $40,000 trailer. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. And when COVID hit, my operating costs were so high, I just couldn't afford to keep going. The truck was breaking down, and I made the decision to do the right thing, and I closed the business, sold the truck, and I ended up taking a job that was offered to me in Missouri. And that gave me the opportunity to, because that while I was driving, I was going back and forth to Des Moines to take care of my mom. Every couple of months, I would stop in and do the honey-do list, rotate the totes and the heavy stuff for her holidays so she could put up her decorations when they came around, And it's hard to find freight out of Iowa, man. So when COVID hit, it got even harder. And even the stuff you did find didn't pay shit. So I just financially, I couldn't afford to keep doing that no more. And she was going to lose so many health benefits by moving to the East Coast because it's based off of pay and how much she makes. And so I couldn't afford that route either. And this job opportunity came available. I was able to move her to Missouri, and I took this job that was offered to me by my old first aunt. And when I came back here, man, that's where the path I got put on. I finally realized this is where I'm supposed to be. This is what I'm supposed to do. We started a podcast out of really just another spontaneous idea and kind of a joke at the same time. He owned a little bit. My old first aunt owned a little gun business here in Rolla, and I would go over and help him hydro dip some guns, or we'd do some builds or whatever, and go to the range and go test fire and shoot and shit. And that was relaxing for me. I enjoyed it. And one day I told him, I said, "You know what we should do? We should start a podcast." And he goes, "Oh yeah, what would we call it?" I said, "How about two drunk dudes in a gun room? Because all we do is sit in here and drink and work on guns." And that's where the name came from, And so we brought on soldiers that we were stationed with, and we started building a network back around us and bringing our old soldiers back in, and putting some camaraderie back together. And by the 3/4 of the way through season 1, I realized, this was therapy. I mean, I was talking about stuff that I never even talked about with my family, and I was talking to perfect strangers that were veterans across the camera, and the shit at the VA didn't work for me for their therapy. And so by the end of the season 1, my buddy, he dropped off, and I decided to keep it going, and I just never changed the name. So I had to find more people to do interviews because I didn't want to be a host without anybody to talk to, because I felt weird just talking to a mic. It didn't feel the same. So, I started searching out there and finding some guests, and the algorithms kind of dedicated the rest of my life without even knowing it. I ended up getting some musicians, some veteran musicians that came on, and I seen a problem that I had that I didn't really care about, but it affected them more than it did me. And that's, if you have a podcast, the ratings are hard to get people to review, to get downloads. I mean, it's a constant fight. You're fighting algorithms and everything else. And for me, this was therapy. So I didn't care. I didn't care if one person watched my show or 10,000 people watched my show. What we're doing right now was all I cared about. And when I had these musicians come on, I seen that it did matter to them, because if they didn't get a gig, they're not selling CDs out of the back of their cars no more. So if they didn't get a gig, they didn't get paid. And these people were putting food on their table at that time. So again, I'm a problem solver, man. I like to see a problem, I figure out a way to fix it, and then move on. And so I created a radio station for veterans, and it was called Gunroom Radio. I went and paid. I got licensed through BMI and ASCAP. Operation Encore helped me navigate some of the legalities, and answered a lot of my questions. And they started bringing on veterans and playing their music. And that grew into a nonprofit that now supports podcasters. It supports authors. It supports comedians. The radio station's up to 4 channels. We have a mixed channel, a country station, a rock station, and a comedy channel. And we're supporting people that are, doing what they love, and whether they realize it or not, it's a little bit of therapy, because they're giving a piece of that shit that they're bottling up inside them is coming out. And I'm a firm believer, as long as you keep talking, that means you're still alive. And at some point, you're going to find the help that you need. And I found that through podcasting. It brought a person to me that is in charge of a program called the Warrior's Way Mindset. And it's not a nonprofit, it's a for-profit, but it was an amazing group therapy that has done wonders for me. And it has now got me to the point where I'm trying to get off my medication. It's helped me deal with my anger, and so it wasn't too different from what the VA does, but the way they give it to you is completely different. It's not rammed down your throat, and you're surrounded by a bunch of people that have the same problem. So it was an amazing thing. And that's where the idea of the nonprofit came from, was just, let's just keep these veterans active. Don't let them quit doing what they're doing, when this is probably the only therapy they're really getting. And the only time they're really talking about their problems is through a microphone and onto a screen. So as long as we keep them going, at some point they're going to find their Warrior Way mindset or another 501c out there that can help them. And that's all I'm trying to do. At the same time, if you want this to be a career, we're here to help support that too.
Oh, definitely. And I think everything you've been through is not different than many other veterans. To not knowing that you're the one that changed and your family was the catalyst to show you kind of you changed. For me, it was also Ramadi, 2003, 2004. I came back and I didn't think I changed. I didn't think anything was wrong with me. I kept telling everyone something's wrong with you, something's wrong with you. And it wasn't until 2015, 2011 when I came home from my third deployment that I realized something was wrong with me. And I tried to get help and was told, no, you're good. Go back and lead. So I just went back into my bottle, and what I had to do for the next 2 years till I retired. And then in 2016, I finally sought help outside, and I got with Dr. King Counts, and he helped me out. And I thank him every day. I wake up and look at the light. I can say King Counts helped me get here because he showed me the way to get everything off my chest. And that's why we started the Misfit Nation. Same kind of reason you did. It's the selfish or selfless, the selfish, whatever you want to call it, to let us tell stories, get the pressure off their chest, and knowing that they won't become part of the 22 or 44, whichever stat you want to talk about. The VA says 22, and the world knows it's about 44 based on actual reality. People that we lose today, our brothers and sisters, they drop like flies because they don't find that purpose. They can't breathe. They can't let that noise out of their head. And I'm glad you were able to find the warrior way and get out of that mindset, your mind correct, and now are able to flip that coin and help our brothers and sisters as they are going through it. I love the name of your podcast, Two Drunks in the Gun Room. My resident redneck is probably laughing because he probably loves that name as well. He's in the chat. He's the one that said he was in Bosnia as well. He was in Bosnia probably around the same time you were. He was like etched. So he
I was
got
there
to
in 96. Or no, 98.
Yeah, he was there in 96, and landmines were no joke as EOD tech. And so he got to see a lot of stuff there as well. And I think what you're doing is great with your show. Now your nonprofit, you showed yourself that you could start a business and run. Just that you ran into a lot of the issues that many entrepreneurs did, and then other entrepreneurs did at the time of COVID. The world shut down, and hard to keep an entrepreneurial business up that's not corporate laden, to keep it running without all that extra corporate background. So you were able to make that decision and understand why you were making that decision and move forward. So that's the best thing you probably did for you and your family.
Yeah, and I did, like I said, I did the same thing. You know, when I got out of the military, I got into a pissing contest with the VA representative there at Fort Stewart. And the last thing I said to the VA is, you can go fuck yourself. I don't need your money. And I didn't file a VA claim for 3 years after I got out.
Wow.
So when I started seeking help, I used TRICARE and went to a civilian therapist because I still wasn't ready to swallow my pride over a stupid argument that was nothing. But that's the way my life had became, was, the drop of a pencil, I'm ready to go off, and literally that whole fight that cost me 3 years of claims and getting help was strictly from the fact that I said, "Excuse me, sir, do you have a second? I have a question." I had an appointment the next day. It was not a scheduled walk-in day that day, and all I wanted to ask him was, what paperwork do I need to bring? And he looked at me and he goes, "Do you have an appointment?" And he was standing in front of the office shooting the shit with another soldier. I said, I don't. I said, "I just have a question." And he said, "Well, today is not a walk-in day. You have to have an appointment." And he turned around and walked off. And that's when I just lost my shit, man. And something as simple as that, changed the next 3 years for my family, for me getting help. Maybe that day would have never came that I threw my son out had I gotten help sooner. But I went to the American Brain Institute there at Fort Stewart, and the Dr. D they call him Dr. D because nobody can pronounce his last name, and I honestly don't even know it. So, but he now runs the PTSD clinic there for the Air Force Base in what's that town? Valdosta, I think it is.
Valdosta, yeah.
Yeah. But I asked him, I said, "What did they got PTSD from, man? Were the sheets dirty, or what was the deal?" I said, "We need you in here."
Is the lobster bad?
Yeah, but he just laughed, and but he was a great guy, man. And that's where I started getting the help, and then I made the same mistake most other soldiers did, and when the symptoms got numbed, I was healed. Problem's gone. Medicine worked, and I stopped taking them. And luckily at that point, when I started going back down that road again, I seen it. Now I could see. I noticed my feelings were different. My moods were different. And so when I got to Rolla, I got enrolled in the VA system, and it did help me, quite a bit. And so, like I said, now I'm trying to get off the medication, but I want to do it the right way and know that I've done the work and the healing, to where I don't need all this stuff,
Right. I never took the medication. I went the non-medical route because I first walked into the VA. Our brothers and sisters walking like they were zombies, and
Yep.
even the older veterans, the Vietnam guys, they were just drugging up as well. It just felt so cold and empty in the VA, and the first thing the doc wants to do is just hand you drugs. And I said, I'm not taking them. So I just parked my police station when they mailed them to the house. I said, here, put this in your amnesty box. I don't need them. I'm not going to take them anyway. And I still haven't taken them. I just do what Dr. Counts taught me, and I kind of drive forward. And each one of us has a different way to get that help and a different thing that'll help them. And Dr. T helped you, Dr. Counts helped me, some other doctor will help our brother and sisters. And each method is different as well. So it's not one size fits all. So it's like when you were in, and I know you're 160, so you didn't have to really get a real haircut. You could have had your bangs and your frosted tips in 160th and stuff. But you wanted to go to a good barber and get that good haircut. You wouldn't just go to someone every time if they would give you a bad haircut. So it's the same thing with your mental health. You got to have that great feeling when you walk in there, the feeling that you're welcome and they actually understand what you're talking about. And that kind of turns a lot of friends off as well. They walk in and they don't feel like that warm and fuzzy when they walk in there, and that's it. They turn it off and I'm out. I'm never going back, and they don't come back.
Yep. Especially at the larger VAs, man. The larger VAs, it doesn't even feel like you're welcome there. It's just a giant hospital and you're just a number. And it's hard, the one right outside here, Rolla, out there at St. James, very tiny. I don't think I've ever been in there longer than 15 minutes. And very nice people, But again, it's hit or miss. It depends on where you go and what you're going to find. And unfortunately, people think that's therapy, that, that's their taste in therapy. And they don't go to another place. Think about how many soldiers have TRICARE and don't even use it for mental health because
for
of
anything for that matter.
So it's tough, man. And the other part of this war was a 20-year war. So, you have different generations that are fighting PTSD right now. I'm a generation that retired in 14. The guys that, you got guys that came in right after the war started and spent 20 years fighting the same war, and got out 20 years later. And that's a whole nother generation of people. The way you reach them, how you talk to them, their needs are all going to be different than the way you're going to reach me, and different than the way you reach the Vietnam veteran guys, or the lack of reaching the Vietnam veteran guys as the VA did,
Right.
But it's tough to know all those answers, but I think that's where the mom and pop 501Cs really come in.
Yep. And that's where the link has to be, and stop trying to pigeonhole each other. Share your knowledge, share what your services are so that you can help everybody. Don't just say, oh, we do it better than this because this is how we. Maybe what you're doing works for 90% of the people. There's 10% that might need organization B. So let's help each other, help everybody. So then we're all getting to the other side and staying out of that darkness. So that's what we have to aim for. And I'm going to hook you up with another show to go on as well. One of my brothers, I'll send him a Homefront Heroes, David Willis. I'll send you his information, get you on his show as well, because he loves talking to nonprofits, especially veteran nonprofits. So I'll get you on there as well.
Awesome. So, and that's really what we're doing, for our podcast project. It's called Military United Podcast Streams, right? A guy named Brian Roof runs it with me. He's the CFO for Heroes Voices Media Foundation, and he runs that portion of it. And really what it is it's a network of us helping veteran podcasters, right? The big goal is I want to see a change, man. I want to see the veterans get recognized for the great things they do. You know, it bothers me that if you search the term veteran podcast, the categories they get put in is either government or mental health. Veterans are
Yep.
way more than that. We're not somebody that you put in a bottle and say, break in case of war. You know, we have dreams, we have aspirations, you know, and all these veterans that get out and decide to be musicians, why shouldn't they have the opportunity to be the next Garth Brooks? Or if you want to be a podcaster, you want to be the next Joe Rogan, whatever that case may be, even down to being a doctor or a lawyer. You know,
Right.
you sure are going to have to put the work in, but you're now 10, 15 years behind your counterparts that are your same age that didn't serve a day in their life and dedicated their whole time to that career. So just because you served in the for your country does not mean that you should be held back because you're starting that process later, but now you're too old for, you know, a record label to be interested in you because they're not going to get their money out of you. And
because you're
that's
not a
where,
pop princess.
yeah, and that's where we're coming at. So, you know, I'm working with other organizations. We're trying to get what's called the VMA started, the Veteran Music Awards. We're trying to get things changed for podcasters where there's a veteran podcast ranking. You know, I know I'd like to know who the best veteran podcast is if I was a veteran looking for, you know, comedy or whatever that I could relate to, because I have to go through podcast after podcast to find something I really like because it just says comedy. But my sense of humor, I promise you, is way different than somebody that never served. And so you have to really rely on people because you can't find that in the rankings. And so these are the little things that we're trying to change as well, you know. But the VMAs, I think, is going to be amazing. You know, we're trying to get to where we can have the stars that have already made it that were served, your George Straits and Zach Bryans and people like that, have them host it, and then have the actual musicians be the independent guys that are out there grinding and trying to get known and get their name. You know, they may never make it, but for that day, that one day, they may be the next Garth Brooks because they get a walk on the red carpet, they get a little bit of TV time, and fart jokes definitely do it, man.
See, fart jokes too do it. See, I knew it. I knew it'd bring a laugh to you.
But you know, so that's what we're about, man. We're trying to highlight the good stuff, not just be focused on the bad stuff, but at the same time, keep doing what you're doing and get your story out until you find the help that you need, you know?
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. So, Donald, we talked about a lot of stuff tonight. The 30 minutes flew by. We're at 40 minutes now. So it's great that you were able to share your whole journey with us and save my voice because my voice still isn't 100% back from the flu. So thank you for that. And that was good. Where can people find you and get in contact with you to learn more about everything you're doing, not just for yourself to get better, but for others to get better?
So you can go on Linktree. Heroes Voices Media Foundation is our @ and you can find every single link for anything that we got right there. You can also go to heroesvoicemediafoundation.org, gunroomradio.com, twodrunkdudesinAgunroom.com. All of these websites are intertwined, so you can find any link or any program on any of those. We're also on Discord, so if you want to reach out to us there and be a part of that, it's the same thing, Heroes Voice Media Foundation on Discord and Facebook and any of the other platforms, Instagram. So you can find us just about anywhere. And if you search, if you Google Two Drunk Dudes in a Gun Room, you'll find a ton of stuff, even some liberal stuff that don't like us. But that's okay.
Well, I'm in the liberal world right now. I understand what you're saying. We do have a question in the chat just came in. If a veteran is diagnosed with PTSD, is it listed as a disability, and how does that affect job placement? I believe it's not listed as a disability that's open to the world. If it's mine's on there, it didn't affect my job placement or my security clearance. I don't know what your experience has been with this.
No, yeah, same thing. So I do a lot of hiring where I work as the general supervisor, and I can't even ask it. You can list it that you're, you know, a disabled veteran or whatever, and that you have disabilities. it doesn't even come to me in the application. I don't see it. It stays with the HR department, and I, you know, I wouldn't, if you don't tell me, I wouldn't know. And so it doesn't affect you in that aspect. And even when you put down that you have a disability, you don't have to disclose by law. You don't have to tell them what it is. You don't have to tell them you have PTSD. You know, you just have a disability, and then they're going to ask if there's any special requests that you need to do that job, and you can say yes or no, and they'll either accommodate or they won't. And at the end of the day, nothing gets disclosed. As far as, you don't never have to tell them. It's up to you if you want to disclose that you have PTSD or if you have a bad knee. It's up to you.
Outstanding. Thank you, Donald, for explaining that for the question. I hope it answered their question. Again, thank you for taking some of your time on a Sunday night to hang out with us instead of hanging out or finding that dodgeball bar in Bravo that I told you about. But if you do find it again for me, just go in and take some pictures. I'd love to see if it's still up and running.
Absolutely. I'm going to go searching for it, man. Next weekend, I'm on a mission.
Outstanding, brother. Thank you. Have a good night.
All right, man. You too.
This message is from the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. Did you serve in the military? If so, you can obtain a free lifetime pass to more than 2,000 federal recreation sites. These sites are located across more than 400 million acres of public lands, including national parks, wildlife refuges, and forests. The lands host activities to fit any lifestyle: hiking, biking, fishing, camping, and much more. Gold Star families are also eligible for these free lifetime passes. Plus, they cover entrance fees for a driver and all passengers in a car, or up to 3 additional adults at sites that charge per person. Obtaining one is easy. Just go to the National Park Service website, nps.gov, or the National Park Service app.
Thanks for checking us out and being a part of the MisFit Nation. Don't forget to visit our website at themisfitnation.com. That's themisfitnation.com. Check out all of our past episodes and get some of that great MisFit Nation gear. As always, be humble, stay hungry, and keep hustling, because we are MisFit Nation. MisFit Nation. MisFit Nation. MisFit Nation.